So, Valve just announced their new batch of hardware, which are this new Steam machine, along with the new Steam controller, and the brand new VR headset called the Steam Frame. I have a lot of high hopes for these new devices, and I thought it'd be nice to talk about them. I do want to say, however, that this is not me trying to tell Valve what to do, and I'm also not trying to say that this is actually what's going to come true. But I would like to see it happen. I think Valve as a company focuses more on the consumers than the profit they actually make from it. The Steam Deck is a prime example of this. Valve sold that at a pretty substantial, or in Gabe Newell's words, painful loss. They did this because they knew the money they get from the Steam platform would be enough to cover the loss. This gives me hope for the new hardware, but Gabe Newell did state they wouldn't be taking Steam sales into account for the pricing on these. To fully know how substantial of a device the Steam Machine really is, we need to look at the steps Valve took to make it. Back in 2012, Microsoft released Windows 8, and Gabe Newell didn't like the closed nature of Windows. He decided to take matters into his own hands and create a platform-based Linux operating system. Valve started working on the Steam Machine. This device wouldn't officially release until November 10th, 2015. This device was viewed by many as a complete failure, with the Steam controller being confusing since Valve opted for 2 trackpads, 4 face buttons, and only 1 thumbstick. This made certain games almost unplayable for some users, especially people who were new to PC gaming. With how poorly the first Steam Machine was received, most people thought Valve would just make a Steam Deck 2 or continue working on a rumored VR headset nicknamed the Deckard. Until Valve announced that they have been working on both the rumored VR headset and an entirely new Steam Machine and Steam controller. This blew my mind, and because of my experience with the Steam Deck, I wanted this new Steam Machine. I was looking into it as much as I could, but with how much information Valve released, they left out one very important detail. The price of the Steam Machine is something that I am 1, worried about, and 2, hopeful for. Valve has stated that it will be priced more like a PC, so it might be more expensive than most people may want. My only hope is that it is at most $900. I think as long as it's less than $1,000, it has a very good chance of being one of the best console-like devices out there. Another really big hope that I have for the Steam Machine is that it is fully VR capable, because it'll add another reason for some low-end PC users to maybe upgrade to a Steam Machine. I know it's sort of confirmed because Valve has said in interviews that the teams working on this hardware wanted all the devices to work together in some way, but this doesn't entirely mean that it can play VR. I am hoping that it can, though. It would be awesome if I could play like the games like Boneworks and Blade and Sorcery and even Half-Life Alyx if that's possible. But even add more of an incentive to buy a Steam Frame. Maybe Valve could release a bundle of sorts with the Steam Machine and the Steam Frame, or even the Steam Machine and the Steam Deck, or all 3. That'd be awesome. I did kind of steal that idea from the Deck Ready channel on YouTube. You should check him out. He's pretty cool. He makes a lot of cool videos regarding the Steam Deck updates and a lot more, so you should absolutely do that. I'm not entirely sure if I need to cover the Steam controller or not, but I'm doing it anyway. My hopes for the Steam controller is that it's simply better than the old one, and that's not very hard. In fact, they already did it, so there isn't much else that I need to say. But I do hope that it's a working controller. Now I think it's time to talk about probably my most anticipated piece of tech Valve showed off. The Steam Frame has some pretty big shoes to fill, because it's the little brother to the most well-known VR headset, the Valve Index. I've wanted a Valve Index since I was around 12 or 13 because of its base station tracking, comfort, controllers, and top-tier audio. So the Steam Frame is something that I'm very excited for. I have been very passionate about VR since I first got my Oculus Quest 1 back in 2019. So I hope the Steam Frame will be able to exceed my expectations, but I'm not sure. The first thing I noticed while watching the announcement trailer is Valve removed the incredible off-ear speaker system that the Valve Index had. This worries me because a huge selling point of the Index was the audio. The only other headset that really competed with it was the HP Reverb G2 because it has the exact same speaker system. However, with more info regarding the frame, I think the audio won't really be much of a deal breaker, especially with the 2160 by 2160 per eye resolution. It is on par with headsets like the Reverb G2 and the Pico 4. While being just below the bar set by the Quest 3. The frame makes up for this lower resolution by adding built-in eye tracking similar to the PSVR 2. The frame seems to have kept the controller finger tracking that the Index had, but changed it in a pretty smart way. Instead of the entire grip of the controller being just sensors to track the fingers, it has a grip button which could help Oculus, Meta users adjust to the new controllers. My genuine hopes for the Steam frame are pretty simple. Make standalone VR compatibility a priority. While I don't think Valve is trying to compete with Meta and their Quest line, I think they should make the standalone part of it more VR-based content rather than on-the-go PC-based content. I am hopeful for this, as there have been some developers who are already working on a port, or at least toying with the idea, such as the climbing developer Brian Lindenoff. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I really hope the frame is more than just a wireless PC VR headset. While I wouldn't mind if it is, I just think it'd be more widely adopted if it was both PC and standalone VR. With the decline of Meta and their shift in VR focus, I could see the frame closely competing to the Quest line if it does have more support for VR standalone. I'm super excited for the new hardware. I've been in desperate need of a new PC because my 16GB of DDR4 RAM and my GTX 1660 have not been keeping up recently. The Steam controller's release date and price were just dropped a few days ago as of making this video, and I think what the controller offers makes it worth the high price. This does raise concerns that the other pieces of hardware will also be fairly expensive, but I have high hopes for Valve. I am going to order at least one controller to go along with my Steam Deck because I play that in docked mode pretty often. I might do a small review on it if I'm really impressed by it, but that won't be until at least a few weeks of owning it. I am looking forward to seeing everything Valve is making, and I'm hoping that they continue to push the medium forward and set a better example for studios like PlayStation. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe even agreed with some of the things that I said. I know I didn't say too much, but I mean, as long as the Steam Machine is better than what I have, I'd be happy. I'd also love to read any of your ideas in the comments, so please let me know. And thank you for watching.